Hello, it's your old pal PeaceLoveMusic with episode 11 of the DeOrganized Spotlight live broadcast coming to you in partnership with Bitcoin Live Decentralized Board Broadcasting, DeOrganized Media. And we have a great show for you today. We have artist VESA. So a couple of crypto artists. VESA's been working on projects across a bunch of crypto spaces for years. Recently releasing some work on Bitcoin, looking at ordinal distribution. And we also have Reece Swanepoel coming on, been producing some work through Gamma.io on stacks as well as ordinals, and comes from the Tezos and has released some stuff on the Tezos platform. I think they've both done stuff on ETH in the past. And we also have Don Ruiz from DotLocker to talk to us about on-chain identity and how that's going to coordinate with Web2 ID with through their DotLocker platform and application. So without further ado, I will bring on our guests. VESA, how are you today, VESA?
I'm very good, Steve. It's really nice to see you, and I've been looking forward to this chat. So, we've got a couple of aces up our sleeves. I have some things that might help people see the world a little different, I'm hoping, and give some more power to this idea of decentralization, of why we're doing it, what it can potentially achieve, and what might be a little bit in front of us to try to solve, so that the next bull run is really going to help artists do super well and invite new people into the space. So that's what I have in mind right now.
Awesome. I love that, man. And we've had some really interesting conversations. Looking forward to another one. And Don Ruiz from DotLocker. How are you, Don? Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. It's a pleasure to be here. We've finally have the solution out to market. Been kind of locked in a dark room for the last year and a half. And starting to get out there now. So excited to talk about the solution and how we're bringing new users into the space and introducing them to explore different artists like the ones you have as guests today.
Awesome. And I have my good friend, Reece Swanepoel. Swanepoel? How do you pronounce that name? No, I'm just kidding. How are you, Reece?
I am splendid. I am in good company tonight, and I am enjoying myself, spending my time with the viewers. How are you, Peace? Are you excited?
Man, I'm so excited. I'm super psyched. Some of this came together last minute. Some of it came together a little bit more planned out. Well, we do this specific spotlight space every 2 weeks. This was the flagship show. It was all we did as of a couple months ago, and then we started doing the morning show and all the other stuff. We have Big Kitty. We did a sip special this morning, and yesterday's Landy show, and the day before that we had Michael's AI show. So
man, you are growing insanely.
It's insane how much just stuff we're producing on a regular basis, and I'm super psyched to be able to kind of get back to our original format. It's just, I always find this to be my favorite type of conversations, because it's, I interview differently. I don't do a whole bunch of homework, and I don't have pointed questions about your stuff. My guests you guys just talk about whatever you want to talk about, and I'll come up with questions based on whatever you have to say. But it's just this is my element, just having a conversation and chatting with my friends. It's kind
just talking. Yeah.
Right on. So, you know what, Reece, since I brought you in last, I'm going to actually ask you first. What are you working on right now?
So you have seen in the timeline, there has been some mention of emotions. It's a play on word with emotion. It is a play on word with machines. And the reason it is an acronym and not just the word is because each letter actually stands for something that describes what I'm trying to do. But I've only let the community peek so far. I've not shown too much, but I do have a bounty on Zero Authority just to get the word out there a little bit more. I think it already has 20 people who signed up for that, so that's very exciting. Other than that, this
You
may
got 20 people that submitted for your bounty already?
Yeah, dude, that's huge, right?
That's wicked huge. It's actually second place to the highest ever, I think. Actually, I have to double check. But as far as when I did the DeOrganized bounty, we had the most respondents. I think it was like 27 or 28 submissions for our bounty. So you
gave the tip to make sure that you do it well in advance and you give proper time for people to get to it. And there's still like, I think 12 days left or 15 days left. So we might beat you. I'm joking.
I hope you do. I hope you do.
Yeah, because it would mean Zero Authority itself would be growing, which is a good thing.
Well, Zero Authority needs to get more use. I cannot wait. It's a huge added piece to the equation. On-chain reputation and gig marketplace and what they're building out there is awesome. What is your gig? What is your gig for? What do people have to do?
It's not about the correct, like getting into my brain and explaining what the letters of the acronym means. It is about getting the most creative answer for the letters MOCHINES. And to, just give your most creative go. But other than that,
so you're asking people to come up for what the acronym stands for? Yeah,
and people have come up with some amazing stuff. The O and the C in machines is a big giveaway because order and chaos, that's kind of who I am. And people have been paying attention. All the bits flying around, you've seen the post, right?
I have, but I haven't had a chance to really engage much because...
All right, all good. But you've seen like all these bits and pieces like animated flying around. Now, a few people actually realized what I was doing there and added in the N, neural, which is kind of where I'm going with it. So I'm excited to see the community interact with it, really engage, think about it. And it's also building, a little bit of marketing and anticipation for what's coming. This is going to be in December that I'm going to be launching this, and it will be reducted.
Oh, you're taking GPSC's role there. That's a good way to do it, man. Good way to do it. All right, VESA, I know what do you got? What do you want to talk to us about today?
Well, first of all, nice to meet you, John, and nice to meet you, Reece, as well. We haven't, I believe, spoken before, so it's cool to make new friends in this space.
Hell yeah.
And I'll just maybe start with a little bit about me for your audience as well as my new friends here. I started doing phygital art, transformed from being a filmmaker into contemporary art in 2008. I got this idea of starting to body paint on people and photograph that process and tell their stories in this kind of almost a spiritual experience kind of way, and then painting and photographing those paintings and putting it together with Photoshop. And that resulted for me to have digital originals, high resolution files already in 2008. So as you can imagine, it was quite the pain in the ass to try to be an artist making a living. So it's in 2016 that I then sent out my first tweet in January saying that I'd be accepting Bitcoin for my artworks if anyone was interested, and no one was interested for the next year and a half. But then when they were, there was this kind of super highway that opened. But back in the day when I came in, there were maybe, as artists who were that level that you would have exhibited in a gallery show or things like that, there might have been like 5 of us. So that's kind of a little bit about my background. But then things got interesting, and even though I'd done quite a lot of things in the past before even coming to crypto art, I was kind of well poised to be one of the the top selling artists of this whole space, but then something happened, and maybe that's for another day or another topic. It relates to a little bit about a couple of things that I'm excited to talk about. But most importantly, now what's happening next is that I lived with my wife in Dubai for the past 3 years. And with my partner, Dr. Marwan Al-Zarouni, who's the CEO of the Dubai Blockchain Center, we started making these NFT art cars. He has a fleet of cars that we're transforming into art, and through his influence, he managed to get a permit so that we can put these cars on the streets and actually drive them as well as make them into artworks. And they have a digital component and many other things that are familiar from NFTs. And we finally get to start auctioning off these cars in January. So I'm very excited about that. And then maybe relating to the first point that I said about some strange finances and a much, much bigger picture of what's going on in art altogether, I put together this idea of the Department of Artistic Freedom, which relates to a little bit to a similar concept of what Elon Musk is now doing with the Department of Government Efficiency. Because the picture is kind of like this, that for the past 100 years, we've had a sort of war in art toward conservative ideas and increasingly common sense ideas or any sense ideas, as per witnessed by the 6.2 million banana that was just sold and all what happened with the super rare competition, which was pretty much the last straw for me in a couple of different ways. And this Department of Artistic Freedom relates to how we've had a sort of dominant idea of postmodernism inside of the art world for the past 100 years, and increasingly so since Warhol about 40 years now. It's so dominant that people don't even know that that is the only pretty much philosophy you're allowed to have. And we have in the world about 200 philosophies, 100 to 200, depends on how harshly you count them, but you could say that we have 200 legit philosophies in the world. We have 4,300 religions. We have the male perspective. We have the working, stay-at-home moms. We have the working class. We have the dwindling middle class. We have the free speech activists. We have essentially the whole of the world, which is non-existent in the official gallery or contemporary art museum space. Now, I'm not trying to take away anything from the postmodernists. I'm saying absolutely have your avenue and do your thing, whether it to be with LGBTQ, not against it, feminism, not against it. Even if you want to have very inflammatory ideas about race relations and all that stuff, have it. It's your perspective. You're an artist. Please express yourself. But as opposed to the common suggestion, which is now said by the art world, that we're very inclusive, in fact, it is the postmodernists who are the only ones who get to have a voice, and all the rest of them are cancelled out. And this kind of an inversion of creative freedom and our creative subconscious, which is kind of like in a straitjacket and has been for a very long time now, as witnessed by this, I would say, abysmal show that was the Sotheby's banana, as well as the coinciding super rare auction and how the selection process went and what happened with it. We're more than ever in need of this kind of an idea that those people who have been left out of the gallery system, which is pretty much in terms of the diversity of ideas, almost everyone on earth right now, they need to start realizing that we get to start having our communities through Web3 different tools. We can start our own galleries. The conservatives can start their own. The religious can start their own. The centrists can start their own. The classic liberals, whoever. If you have an idea and you can find a community and you've previously been disillusioned by the art world, that you couldn't find a footing or a place in there, or you were for whatever reason excluded and it didn't make any sense to you, it might be that we have a philosophy problem. And once people realize that, then we can invite everyone in for them to use these tools, and then we have a revolution in our hands. We have a new renaissance truly, and then this mass adoption that people keep talking about is actually going to happen. And I think we need a support network for those artists who will be the first brave ones to come out and who will have the kind of heart and the vision to go, oh, that's me. I can do this. And maybe that's why I haven't been doing better than I thought that I could. And then there would be a network that would support that and help everyone have a voice. And it's important to say this, that everyone is welcome. The postmodernists, the everyone. But it has to be, even if you're a super fundamentalist Christian and you see the world this way and you want to dominate the whole thing, no, that's not going to happen. You get to have your say, you get to have your creative freedom, but you don't get to dominate. Much the same with everyone else who comes into this whole thing. And then this network could be something that would be super powerful, and everyone involved. If we get to liberate the whole of the art world essentially through these things, we not only liberate Web3, we're part of something profound. And right now the Web3 has been, I'm sorry to say, a little bit of a disappointment, even though I've been here 7 years and I'm not going anywhere, but it certainly needs a good kick up its ass in order for us to get out of this rut of where we still are.
Yeah, there's everything you just said. I totally agree with what your fundamental basis is, which is that this. It's not just the art world that's afflicted by this, by the way, but you have an establishment authoritarian that's going to dictate what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and especially in the art world, where it's really just all art is an expression from people. You know, if you're in a way that's communicating ideas. And we shouldn't be censoring ideas or only allowing certain people with approved ideas to have a voice. Everyone should have an opportunity to get their stuff out there. And that's actually the ethos behind Bitcoin and crypto and decentralized distributed networks and permissionless exchange, you know? So it does seem like the tools and the rails are being built out for this stuff, but we're still very early in that. I understand your frustration because we're really just starting to get to the real functionality development on crypto now.
Oh, I would say, Steve, with all due respect, when I came in, when I was here in the early scene, we were 1,000 times more free. There was 1,000 times more diversity of ideas and execution and what you were allowed to say and what kind of excitement was in the air, because we could feel that this old regime was changing. And from there, it has increasingly or decreasingly gotten less and less free. And now with this banana stuff, if that's not demoralizing to amazing visionary artists in this space to see this kind of thing happening and the shiny new house or city on the hill like Super Rare and those kind of making these connections to, well, Sotheby's was founded in 1744. We had horse carriages back then, and in their mentality and what they're doing, they don't really understand what this whole thing is about, but they're happy to cash in. But through them, there are influences that are coming in that increasingly are actually shorting the future and longing the past. That's essentially what's been going on for a while now. And yes, it's frustrating for a multitude of different reasons. And I don't think it's going to stop unless if we start fighting.
You're absolutely right. We do need to. There are people working on these processes and these solutions to this. A couple days ago, Good Kitty launched an album on a new platform that is being built called Gated. Gary Reiger from our community is building it out. That literally allows the artists to control the content, the distribution, the money, and really it will allow engagement in the community. It's just launched, you know, so the tools, it's not even all fully functional yet. We're still working on these things as a community yet. You know, the functionality just hasn't gotten there yet for it, but there are people working on it. But you're right, we have to remain vigilant. We can't just sit and wait for somebody else to do it, right? Because then it won't get done. That's why
Ever since COVID, we've had this feeling of personal liberty getting compressed, and this kind of machine that is increasingly the world that some people are definitely being vocal about, and the orbit of Joe Rogan and all of those podcast voices that are the most popular in the world. It's incredible that the majority of the things that are represented in these podcasts that are heard by billions are not represented inside of our Web3 decentralized world. I mean, there was barely anyone who said that, you know, they voted for Trump. in this most polarizing election of all time, because most of the artists know that if they start to touch stuff that is outside of the paradigm of a certain kind of power narrative, or that, you know, they say something that is considered beyond the pale, which is increasingly thin, that line, then not even here the most rebellious were kind of allowed to say anything. So it does feel like the art world is pretending like it's in a bubble and the internet didn't happen, and that there's you know, this content that is inspiring billions around the world somehow doesn't touch us, and it can only happen artificially. And I think it can, that artificial paradigm can be almost like a magic trick. It can just go away like poof, once you just spot it like this and say, hey, that's what's going on, and everyone can pretty much recognize that, oh shit, that's right, and that's ridiculous, and we should do something about it.
You're right. We are in a, you're not wrong. You're entirely right. In fact, things are also very, so the mainstream media, going back to the election, the mainstream media had a lot of us believing that that was going to be a lot closer of an election outcome than it was. Because they don't accurately reflect, they only accurately reflect the world as they want it to be, not as it is. Which is probably the same thing as the art, the gatekeepers in the art world as well. I'm not to cut off that conversation, but I do want to bring Don into the conversation and see what if he has any take on the discussion as it is, and also to tell us a little bit more about DotLocker and some of the solutions they're working on.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I'm not sure how I'm going to follow these two brilliant artists. The stuff I work on is a lot more boring than the creative side that these two gentlemen work on. So I'm very pleased to be here. Thank you very much. Together. Yeah, and that's kind of where DotLocker fits in nicely. Is, you know, we're top of funnel. Our goal as Orange Domains is a joint venture partnership, which includes Trust Machines as the Web3 side, and there's some Web2 sides as well. And the solution is really a bridge for Web2 users to be introduced to explore Web3. It's no real much, you know, larger than that. As we're looking at kind of the goals, it's really to introduce these people. There's over 400 million domain names in Web2, and the Web3 community is still relatively small compared to the Web2 world, of course. DotLocker is the first domain name that bridges Web 2 to Web 3 on the Bitcoin blockchain, specifically through Stacks and the Bitcoin naming system.
Oh, cool.
We have onboarding ramps. We have partnerships with GoDaddy and Namecheap and all these large onboarding ramps that are trusted by Web 2 users, that they go there as a trusted brand. They know what they're getting with these groups. And these groups are now offering DotLocker. And in part of that, they get their DotLocker Web3 digital identity through the Bitcoin naming system. That in itself is the bridge, and we introduce users to the utility of and the freedoms afforded and the immutability and all these wonderful things in Web3. I agree, Steve, with what you said, that we're really early, that there's more utility being built around the layer 2s, in particular on the Bitcoin network. This is what's going to drive innovation. I think that for all these artists and what you're working on, VESA sounds absolutely amazing. I think that the foundational layers are being built. The users are going to come in, and then it's up to these users and it's up to the leaders in the space to create an opportunity for these people to create in these different spaces and express themselves that they want to express themselves. But as I said, with DotLocker, we're top of funnel. We're introducing users who know very little about the Web3 space, trying to give them a curated experience into our world.
So, and you guys are integrated with BNS V2?
Yes, we are. Yes, yeah.
So I have a couple of BNS names. I haven't, probably maybe to my detriment, and partly because I'm just busy and I don't have time to do a lot of things I want to do. I haven't actually had a chance to go and get a dot locker for my BNS name, what is the advantage? Why would I do that? What would I do with that?
Yeah, so what we've done with this solution is you can think of it this way. And again, it's not like a .btc, it's for a different audience. It's for the Web 2 users. The analogy I use is that when you buy a domain name in the traditional world, which I bought my first domain name for $100 in 1997 through a fax machine at NetSol, and I waited 2 weeks and I got my confirmation letter, and then to set up my name servers took another 2 weeks. It was that long ago. And I feel like the Web3 today is like the late 1990s for Web2, especially around the domain space and the digital identity space. And so we don't know who all the winners and losers are going to be. We're not sure where this is actually going to take us, but we do know that there's a lot of money being spent, a lot of innovation, a lot of excitement, a lot of energy. What we're trying to do with .lock, and the reason is we're trying to bridge that gap, as I mentioned before. So the analogy that I use is that you can go get a domain name, and without anything to do, you can set up a website, you can set up email, you can sell art to it, you can do all kinds of creative things in the Web 2 space. Once you get your .locker domain name at a trusted third party, you can then you will then be minted your NFT, your Web3 digital identity through the Bitcoin naming system. And I call that, so the domain name is the car. And that car can take you to many places, and it can go to shopping malls, and it can go to libraries, and it can go to highways, and it can take you all over the place. Once you get that domain name, we're going to give you a bike. And that bike is the Web3 digital identity. And that's going to allow you to explore these new worlds, these new paths, the new bike parks. It can take you to the tops of mountains. It's going to take you on beaches, any place that your car can't go. That's your bike. And so with .locker, you have both, and that's the bridge today. Eventually, maybe everybody does end up on Web3 down the road. We're not sure. But today, there needs to be bridges built to get these people over that threshold, allow them to explore the wonderful world that we are familiar with, that they want to try to get into, but have no idea how to do it. So we have a very curated experience to allow them to get their first wallet, to get their first NFT, maybe make some transactions. They can explore Gamma. They can do all kinds of things within the Stacks ecosystem today using their .locker name.
Very cool. So I do think that eventually everyone's going to be on Web3, but they won't know the difference, right? That most users won't know the difference between Web2 and Web3. There will always be a Web2 piece of it, because you're not going to have it's not efficient to build everything on chain. There's gonna the things you don't need to be on chain shouldn't be. They really shouldn't be. That just
don't force it.
Right.
Yeah.
So, which is one of the things Zero Authority is working on now with the bounties. There's a little bit of friction in the process of submitting your bounty, where it should be a lot easier to submit your bounty, but they built it with the idea of having the whole thing on chain. And they're realizing now that they got to balance some of the give and take. Some stuff does not need to be on chain. It doesn't need to be Web3 functionality for the Web3 piece to work for the user end.
Exactly.
And so that sounds kind of like what .locker is really working on is the connection between the two.
We're not extending Web 2 into Web 3 at all. We're keeping it very separate. We're just bridging it to allow the users to cross that threshold into the space by giving them a very easy to use experience to get their first wallet and their first NFT and to transact within the Stacks ecosystem.
Cool. And that's what's going to, so there's two things that are going to bring mass adoption. Number one, artists are going to bring the community. Art and entertainment is what's going to bring people. So, huge shout out to VESA and Reece. Both of you guys have been artists in the crypto space for a long time, producing content before we're really ready for it, before we're really ready to utilize it like we're going to be able to. And so that's trailblazing and bringing people in. And then ease of use and functionality is what will bring the other piece that'll bring the masses in. Something for them to come look at and engage in an easy way to do so. So that's kind of the two pieces there. And then, VESA, for you, once the community has easy access to Web3, you won't need the establishment to approval for anything anymore, because people will go towards what they are attracted to, because they'll have access to that. They'll have easier ways to find it differently than they do now. The AI is going to play a huge role in that too, but they'll be able to. It's not going to be as siloed like Web 2 social media is. So they won't be able
it
to.
Depends.
Go
Sorry.
ahead.
No,
No,
well, I was just saying that, it depends a little bit about the narrative. Like if you, for example, if I'm a 14-year-old boy when I was in school, the things that were being taught to me and the way that they were being taught to me, like let's say, for example, history, it was so sanitized and boring and kind of put to me in such a way that I was fidgeting in my seat and couldn't stand still and couldn't wait to get out of that class. Now, it turns out that later on, when I started learning about history and not this kind of a version of history that was sanitized or kind of beat to death in this boring way that it was being taught to me, I really figured that I'm a history buff, and that's something that I've dedicated a considerate amount of my life afterward to, starting from the pyramids and going all the way down to ancient myths and like from there onward to everything, and how fascinating that is. And I just realized that there's a big effort altogether, and I apologize to my company here. You're new to me. I'm a little bit of a fire hose when it comes to stuff like this, and not always super friendly to all kinds of very cleanly presented things. But that's sort of the idea, is that we have a very it's not only the art world, it's not only the narrative that is being kind of controlled in the NFTs, and it's been made deliberately boring or stupid so that people aren't coming in, and those voices who make it make sense are actually actively pushed to the side. So what I'm saying is that it's not a given that this space is going to thrive, and it's going to thrive for the right reasons, because thus far I've seen a lot of different kinds of manipulation for the nonsensical stuff to come to the surface, so that those who are only just hearing about it kind of go, well, that's stupid, because they've never actually even heard the right arguments. And we have a little bit of a problem with our history altogether, like that we have some distortions and things that are left out and whatever. And if you can't make sense of your past, it's very difficult for you to build your future and even be kind of present, because you're a little bit rootless. And I think this is what I've taken upon for myself as a bit of a mission, because I was here almost before anyone else, and I remember it in very well what it was here, like just what feels like a bat of an eyelid ago. Then I can't help but to be vocal about it. And they've already kind of canceled me from a bunch of different things and not included me and whatever. And they've done that because I stood for the actual thing that this space is about. Then it's kind of natural for me to go like, well, you can't shut me up, because I know what this is, and you're not doing it for the reasons of this space. You're doing it to its detriment. And I think if I'm loud enough and keep saying it and keep making sense to those who are kind of like really interested, as well as potentially brave to do something about it, then that courage is contagious. I think the spirit of like the creative spirit of humanity and what we're here to do and what we have the potential to do, when someone speaks to that, and all these people that I listen to myself to get encouragement to keep doing what I think is the right thing to do for the world and what I think is good for it, then that rubs on different people. I would like to see it kind of much more, and I've seen that happen now that I've gone to different shows and I write and I tweet and I do whatever. I've started to see that spirit, like, yeah, that's what this is about, and I can do this as well. And that would be a different part of my legacy as an artist. There's what I do as an artist, and then there's this thing what I represent, which is much, much bigger than that. And I hope that gets to be contagious, and then that's something to live up to.
Yeah, and I appreciate. So you see things that you're exposed to a different community than I am, where I'm, you know, and I'm largely looking at the Stacks ecosystem because that's where I converse mostly at this point. But it is the broader Bitcoin ecosystem. I'm friends with a lot of ordinals guys and a lot of guys making NFT art, musicians. What I'm finding amongst the builders in this space, the people that are building out projects and applications, is that they are doing so with an eye towards facilitating what you want to see, the same vision that you're after, with more inclusion, but inclusion based on capacity and opportunity to engage and produce and retain the a lot of people working on options for creators to retain control of the value they create, which is a huge part of the problem in the real world. And capacity to actually, like, open communication. Censorship in general is a huge problem right now. You know, there's
Massive.
I don't have to tell you, you're in Europe, you know, so there's
Yeah, I'm thinking about coming to an asylum as a asylum seeker to the US right now. It's turning out to be pretty bad over here, not gonna lie.
Well, and that's, to be honest with you, while I know a lot of, and I voted for him as well, even though my state, it didn't matter because we're super blue. But I'm not a huge, like, 100% Trump supporter. I see him as a something different to the establishment, which a lot of people maybe don't. But I'm still a little concerned about his flexing muscles, about using the military to do mass deportations of illegal immigrants and stuff, because I don't think that that's the right way to look at things either. You know, in a free and open society, decentralized world, one of the important things I think would be that the free movement of people, and people are by their nature economically viable and economically generative. So more people means more economic capacity if they're allowed to actually exist in a productive status without having this illegal label and all that stuff. I'm not so sure that the people we have in place are going to open everything up like some people are. I have a grain of salt mentality. I'm not expecting everything to just all of a sudden manifest into beauty. We have a lot of work to do still to build out our space, to build it out with an eye towards making sure that it is inclusive and open and permissionless and borderless and trustless and all of those things that Web3 are bringing. But I am very, very encouraged by the spirit of the people that I'm meeting that are building and producing in the space, because most of them see things the same way. They want empowered individuals, but they also appreciate that they need to work with other people to build out what they want to see built out, which is how it's supposed to be in a consensual, open market economy. So I do see things, nothing is a given. Nothing is given that this is going to go. It's all still an experiment until we actually get it all built out. But I do think that we're going to be able to, I'm very optimistic about the future of crypto, Bitcoin, stacks, and other L2s around, L2s and meta protocols around Bitcoin, and even other crypto chains being able to facilitate some of the things we're looking at. But I appreciate your position. You've been up against a monolith for a long time.
16 years now, and it's increasingly obvious, and it's coming to the surface. And not to take over your show, but with all due respect, but I'm really curious about Reece, as in that, have you had any kind of similar experiences, or how do you see this kind of a thing with around art, if it's okay to ask?
Always.
Thank you. Yeah. I have my own thoughts about postmodernism as well, where we started, where this whole thing started. And I have my own thoughts against the whole problem of not being able to accurately define good art, because that is another one of the things that they won't let us talk about. Is like, oh no, but you can't say there's an objective truth to what is good and what is not, but that would mean that some of the things that we have sold is not good art. And then, there's a whole money laundering system over there, and it all includes not being able to talk about what good art actually is. As for freedom of expression, you make good points. VESA, I'm talking specifically to you. You make good points, and I think everything you're saying is true. But the inherent risks for an artist that has to survive on his craft make it incredibly difficult to stand the chance of blackballing yourself to death, to poverty, and not having a chance to not even having a chance to have a chance. You know what I mean?
Well, I've been incredibly resilient. I think many quote unquote normal people would have been pulverized to dust by now with the kind of things of what I've been through. And it's not been fun. It's been challenging for my health, my mental health at times. It certainly was something that was difficult with my relationship and all different kinds of things where we had to live and what we had to do. But somehow we managed. And then when Bitcoin came along, it was such a lifeline, and the people all of a sudden resonated with my ideas. They understood what I was about. They got that I really understood decentralization. We started telling the story together, and opportunities came. And I didn't do super well, like up until, but I do think, and this might sound really crazy to people, but I think my perception and speaking out about things has cost me north of about $40-50 million thus far. I'm not super poor, but I'm not comfortable either. I did okay. But there's still, what I do have is a network of people who actually really support what I do, understand what I'm talking about, and they're doing well, and they're doing in their own things, and they provide me with opportunities. So even though I'm so vocal about this right now, which just, if I had no network whatsoever and only my online presence or something like that, I'd be absolutely terrified to say anything. But because I have a little bit of network and just realized that I've got nothing to lose, because these people are never going to include me anyway. I've given them all the opportunity in the world to do the right thing, and that's never going to happen. So I might as well just actually start to find my tribe, inspire others, and say that, oh, by the way, it might be difficult, but you get to be yourself. You get to be a free artist and a free person, and you get to do your real contribution to the world. Because the more increasingly you let go of something that is truly you in order to serve something that doesn't have your benefit in mind, and it's not benefiting you, then you can find your tribe, and increasingly you become something that you didn't want to be to begin with, and then that defeats the whole purpose. So this is why I'm hoping that we will start to find the real authentic community, and we get to start propping each other up and inspire each other to be better and do the thing what you wanted to do, and then I think it's useful.
Awesome.
I love it.
Well said.
Yeah, well said. Very well said. And VESA, I consider you a friend. We've only had a handful of conversations over the last few months, but I do consider you a friend, and I think I love your perspective on things. I really do. And same thing with you, Reece. Obviously, I consider you a good friend, and I think that you both bring a unique representation of what it's like to be an artist in the space right now. So I guess what is it that you two think you need to see more of out of the crypto community, and out of what do you need to see develop more, or what are you looking for that would make you more optimistic about the future?
Do you want to go, Reece, or?
I'm thinking.
I stumped both of them.
No. I'm waiting if Reece wants to, because I just spoke. I don't want to.
Oh, please go
dominate
ahead,
the
because I'm
room.
still thinking of like wording it.
Okay, well, I'm actually writing an article at the moment that I'm a little bit terrified to write, but once I figured this out, I think it's important for people to understand. And I wouldn't dream of knowing what to tell people of what they should be doing. If I present the concept that, oh, by the way, we've been dominated by the single idea and what we need is diversity of ideas, then that is enough for anyone with ears to kind of pick up and go, oh, I have an idea, and oh, that was the thing that I maybe why I didn't have the courage to go ahead and now I will, and that'll manifest into a lot of different kind of things. The thing that is something that is probably the least talked about thing inside of the art world is that we know from declassified documents, we know from independent research on journalists and some biographies that what happened in the 40s is that there was a CIA operation called the Long Leash that they came in through a variety of different organizations to come and prop up abstract expressionism. So Jackson Pollock, Rothko, de Kooning, and some others they threw millions of dollars through these covert organizations, and MoMA helped knowingly and so forth in order for abstract expressionism to fight against the kind of Soviet art propaganda that was about their leaders and work and this kind of a thing. And essentially abstract expressionism was that we're so cool.
An answer to suprematism.
Yeah. Well, it was like, we're so free and awesome in America that we can even do this, and you don't have to serve your masters like this. So they entered the culture wars, and this we know for a fact. Now, if we know something about the intelligence agencies, that if they find something that works, they're unlikely to leave the space. Now, I don't know what is being going on, but it's quite likely, and not beyond the pale to expect that CIA is still inside of the contemporary art space, and a lot of different agencies actually entered in their wake to come into that space. And now when we do see things like, whether it be different kinds of whatever ridiculousness has been going on inside of the art space for a while, I started asking the question, well, which one of these, because and I'm not saying that any of the, let's say, Web3 companies would even know that might be happening, or any of the artists, they wouldn't know. But through these different organizations, and they're kind of, if they want to prop up an agenda, let's say if it was the LGBTQ thing, and that all of a sudden gets hundreds of millions of dollars put into it and into its artists, and they get lifted or something like that, maybe that wasn't all organic. Because that's sort of the thing. It's not only the American agencies, it's all the different ones from all across the world that have come and entered the art space ever since. And we don't know what's going on. We don't have any proof. There's no kind of declassified documents after the ones from the 40s and 50s. But if we use our reason a little bit, then you kind of start to look at the map and the territory a little bit different. And if that's brought to the surface of what kind of shadow games are being played in art that have nothing to do with art and creative freedom or merit or the expression itself, could that be a part of the reason why we are in the mess that we are? And unless if we can even just suggest that might be the case, I don't think we'll ever solve the problem if there is one. So I would love for people to kind of just have this sort of a perspective to start understanding that there's a certain sort of paradigm inside of art, and why that's so important is that the whole of the art world, essentially, if it's functioning properly, it's the same as free market capitalism. It is the free marketplace of ideas if it functions properly. So this is the same for art. It is the free marketplace of creative ideas that are meant to duke it out and find and kind of have this sword play of different ideas and expressions in order for the best to rise to the top, because that's our creative spirit. Now, if the creative spirit is tampered with in one way or another, and we get to only have these propped up bananas, that makes a mockery of the whole of the art, that laughs in the face of any artist trying to have their spirit kind of do a contribution towards the world. And then everyone who is inside of that system just gets demoralized, as well as those watching it are going like, well, this is a joke. So this is, I think, where we are from a variety of different kind of reasons. I'm not saying that that's an alphabet agency problem alone. There's all different kinds of issues of what we have, but that could be one of them.
And it makes total sense. Go ahead, Reece.
No, I just wanted to answer to that last part what you said. It's really surprising how many practicing artists there are in the world with things like the Banana Republic shit going on. That there are people like us who are like, no, we're just not going to go that way. We're not going to think that is okay, but we're going to do our own thing regardless of this absurdness that is going on. But I hear what you're saying, that there's a method to the madness, that it's not just the fucking banana on a wall. There was an idea behind it that has been long planned, and there's no way to disprove it, like you say, because the CIA did do that shit back in the 40s, and if it worked, then why would they stop? It could have become like a multinational puppet war going on behind the back. I'm speaking freely now, yes. So if I get assassinated, guys know it's because of this. But
just blame me.
The fact that you're still alive is a good sign to me. No, lost my point. Sorry. Please, let's continue.
Don, I don't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, I apologize. I had myself on mute there. I have a question for you both, and Steve, you as well. How are you reaching these artists today? How are you reaching these like-minded people? How are you working with them and growing this community of artists today, particularly into the Web3 world?
I would like to go first on this one. There are certain trash artworks that get made, and again, I am a proponent, and I am proud to be a proponent to believe that there is actually something as quality as merit in art, and that trash art is still art, but it's terrible art. So to answer your question, right? Let me get comfortable. If you see an artist that is doing zero thought behind the idea, zero story, zero emotion, zero reaction to the artwork, it's literally just something for something's sake and it's not even good, then you're probably not going to have an in-depth conversation with that person. So it's a type of organic connection, because I can look at art by VESA and I can see that there is story, there is idea, there is emotion, there's layers to it, and this is the person who can actually think about what they're doing, and that's why someone like me would be naturally more drawn to that. It's not, you know what I mean? It's a type of beacon of I can communicate and I'm willing to, while I would not want to have a conversation with the person who I can't even remember his name, that stuck the banana to the wall, because I wouldn't think I'd have a productive conversation with that person at all.
Well, it's just the perspective on that is that I think you can do mental gymnastics and masturbation to no end with that banana and say that it's a comment on this and that, and it's our vanity piece and showing this about society or whatever. But it's 1917 that Duchamp, with this artist further
that's
cover
where
name,
it went wrong.
He brought this. It's called the fountain. So he brought this. What's it called? A urinary kind of like this
urinal,
piss pot, urinal. Yeah. So he brought that to a gallery, paid $6 in order to do it, and he made it as a comment that you can do whatever in art, and its reputation is now discredited, and this and that. So he made something over 100 years ago that is profoundly more insulting, rock and roll, and cool, and back in the day actually something that ruffled some feathers. And now 100 years later, you're doing that with a banana for this kind of lame duck, Generation Y, safe space type way, whatever, and that's meant to be the prop up. I mean, the guy from Sotheby's, the new head of digital assets, said it's the most something profound artwork of the 21st century, or I don't know, whatever it is. But these people know better, and they're just laughing at you. What I find so absurd about this situation is that I kind of understand that it's very difficult to make a living as an artist, and it's like 90% of artists never make it and quit. And because it's so, especially when adulthood comes and you get a baby or whatever, then your dream is dead and you have to move on to something else. That's just, it's a brutal reality. But for those of us who've done exactly what Reece said, is that you've processed this to be an adult and you have a genuine contribution, and let alone you're doing something visionary and inspiring to people. These people are laughing in your face. They're literally pissing on your craft and making it an absolute joke. And I'm surprised that there's not more artists who are furious at these people, and they've been doing it for so long. And it's an increasingly this kind of a thing where I think something needs to happen. And this was my idea about the Department of Artistic Freedom, that I'm hoping, because you can endlessly say that something is shit or garbage or going in the wrong direction or whatever, but unless if you can point people to the right direction and to build something different, then you're eternally stuck in this kind of a rut. And then I'm asking myself, well, who am I? Like just the dude from Finland, and I've been doing this for a long time or whatever, but sometimes it doesn't take more than that. I have no illusion that I can do this by myself, not at all. But I can point us to a certain kind of direction, and if people think that's a good idea, then they'll come and do their own version of it, or join this thing, or kind of start to make art a little differently. Maybe they're going to be a little bit more vocal about stuff like that. I really love how Reece is taking like, oh shit, I can talk here. I can actually say what I feel, and I'm not going to be chastised or whatever, cancelled for it. And I think we need more of this spirit.
I'm happy to be chastised. Cancelled is just, it's childish, but chastise and criticize, I'm happy with that, because that's part of a conversation. I have to risk it, but have some logic behind it. Then that's all I'm asking. And lately, that's not. There's sorry, my thoughts are in 1,000 different places, because I've had this conversation with AI so many times, or updated the conversation so many times, but not so much with other people. But there's this type of, I want to add on to what you said earlier about this puppet play, right? The thing is, there are these controlling top. Let's think of it as in a hierarchy. There are these controlling top that is making the puppets dance. Then there are a few big names that are basically informed by the curators and gallerists and museum people that they are to play along, and they play along. And then there are the uninformed group who still have a lot of money and would love to be proponents of the future of art. They are where things go wrong, because they only know what their perception is telling them, and their perception is telling them that this is the direction that art is going. And so they want to not cash in, but they want to support art and the future of art, but they're supporting it in the wrong way because they don't know the right way, as you said earlier. And then there are the smaller collectors and like the medium-sized galleries and whatever, and they are like, yes, this is the direction art is going, and we will only acquire art into our galleries that are mimicking or at least having the same pseudo-profound type of narrative. And then there are millions and millions of artists. Seriously, like you were mentioning, about 90% of artists don't make it. And yes, it is because of life conditions often happening, but it's also saturation. I don't think ever in history of art there's been so many self-proclaimed artists. Okay, self-proclaimed meaning I can't tell you you're not an artist. If you say you're an artist, fuck yeah, man. But all of these people are looking for a guiding light, are looking for a beacon of what is working right now, not to copy it, but just to have an idea, a direction, and then use it for themselves. And now they are going to all the way to the top, to the fucking banana that I'm mentioning again, and they see that, and there's a large part of the artist population that's going to see that and not think, okay, yes, obviously my first reaction is, this is absurd, but they're going to try and make it, rationalize it. That's the word. They're going to rationalize it to start focusing their art more into that direction. And then people like you, VESA, is going to look absolutely ridiculous because, oh my gosh, you actually have a story and a concept behind what you're doing, but this is not the way we're doing things. End of rant.
Yeah. It's not. There's something maybe to bring up again from the future of one of the ways that I thought it was important to do something. When I heard of Brittany Kaiser earlier, the Cambridge Analytica whistleblower, she's notorious in our space now for data activism and data ownership and actually influencing legislation and a big mover in our space in many different ways. And we started this project with her some time ago where she flew to Finland with her family, and we started recording her in all different kinds of scenes and settings that are about data ownership and her story as a data activist, and then kind of making that into motion NFT art and virtual reality environments and those kinds of things. And I just think it's really important to represent who you are and keep doing the right thing regardless of what the world seems to be rewarding. And it's very, very difficult. You're going to have to do some kind of adjusting and not always doing your kind of highest level work if something else is going to pay the bills a little bit or whatever. So you can be flexible and strategic about things. But it's just important not to give up and to find the thing, because I think if we do fight and if we inspire enough others, then this is truly like a hero's journey. Then we get to look back on this time, let's say in 10 years or whatever, and say, well, we were kind of there. We saw what was going on and we decided to build something different. And what's inspiring, I share your thing, Steve, about my hesitations about Trump, less so about RFK and Tulsi and Elon.
Tulsi Gabbard as the director of national intelligence is actually the most optimistic thing I've ever heard in my entire life.
Right? So there's something that they've started about, kind of just dismantling this illusion machine that is going on. And I think that's partly been very inspiring to me. And kind of seeing that there is now a counter force that is happening. And I think artists and anyone who's building in the Web3 space, like I don't accept to see eye to eye with any other individual in the world with all things or whatever. That's not what the whole point is about. This is why I thought that the organization side of the Department of Artistic Freedom is about everyone getting a voice, even if I don't agree with them, because that's actually tolerance and being liberal. Liberal means that you tolerate sometimes things that you really don't agree with, not that you shut everything out and get to pretend that you're the word that you don't stand for. But I'm also a little bit getting conscious that I'm Don is, is this so far out of your?
No, not. This is very interesting. My younger brother, one of my brothers, is an artist, and he's a graphic designer. He's very interested in the Web3 world, interested in how he can kind of get involved in that. And one of the things I keep hearing from the narrative and is that we need more voices, we need more people joining this cause. And I go back to what I'm trying to do and what we're trying to do at Orange Domains is to bring more visibility into this by onboarding more artists into this world who they see it in the mainstream media, but they don't know how to get involved. Can you imagine if end users and to display their art in their dot locker, for example, and that's part of the connotation, that's part of the user profile that we're going after, to use their dot locker associated with their wallet where they can display all of their art and their collectibles and stuff, within their own personal locker per se on Web3. So this is it goes part and part to what we are doing. We're just doing it at the top of the funnel to try to get more like-minded people and opposing views as well, just into this space so that we can grow those things that you're talking about, right? And find their tribes and find these different things. But we don't have enough mass there yet, in our opinion. I mean, everybody is still on the Web 2 side, and I say everybody. There is a group on the Web 3, but it's not growing the way we need it to grow. But part is because we don't have all of the tools built yet, and we're still very early. Despite having a blockchain that's been 15 years old, it's still only becoming mainstream. Some of the things that we're doing on the L2s and stuff, a lot of the utility, and for artists itself as well. So for us, we're just trying to help the conversation by adding more and more users more artists into this ecosystem.
Don,
Yes.
I have a very superficial question for you.
Sure.
But it is something that I was trying to find an answer to online and really couldn't. Is why is the .locker domain so expensive? When you're going through a domain name service place like GoDaddy, for instance, that's like a week's worth of food for someone like me.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I mean, I come from the domain space. I worked with one of the world's largest registrars, and then I actually was part of the team that launched .blog for 8 years. We launched it back in 2016. So to build out a business model around the cost, so there's some back end costs for a domain name. There's some Web 2 costs, but there's also Web 3 costs because we're actually minting the NFT on the Web 3 side. So pricing that was actually built in allowed us to have a bit of a runway, at least for a few years, so that we don't have to keep going back to the GoDaddies of the world to say, you got to increase your price, because we're losing money, you got to increase your price.
Right.
What we did do though is we did discount heavily for the first year right now. We've done that throughout all the registrars at GoDaddy. It's I don't know, 10 or 12 bucks or something, I think, because the transaction fees are a little bit lower right now. So we felt that we could afford discounting that for people. This is a prototype release. This is one. We are looking at other extensions. We're also talking to other registries. There's .art exists on the Web 2 side, and they did try something on Ethereum, and I'm not sure how that experiment is going, but we are talking to other registries about adopting some sort of tokenization process to introduce these users into this world of Web 3 that exists, but they don't understand how to get there. It's confusing. If you ask somebody, go get a wallet, and go get
You've already lost.
They're very lost. They don't know what wallet to get.
Especially if you say leather wallet. Okay, so I should go to the store and buy a leather wallet?
Yeah, go get my leather wallet, right? But then there's Xverse and MetaMask and Phantom and OKX, and it's very confusing out there. We're trying to demystify that. We're trying. We certainly, with our solution as a prototype again, is to remove all the complexity. We don't mention the word blockchain. We don't mention any technical terms. It's kind of, hey, this is Web 3. This is kind of some really cool, amazing things. There's, you can get right into Gamma, straight from Stacks, and you can start exploring some of the collections and some of the NFTs and some of the things on Gamma. So we're trying to do our part. We're really early. This is the very first namespace. I do appreciate your concern. I will get you your .locker, Reece and VESA and Steve. I'll make sure we have my contact information to get you your .locker. But
let's go.
We do have to make sure that we're covering our costs at least, and we'll see where that goes. But we are certainly exploring other opportunities to bring. And when I say opportunities, it's the opportunity to introduce more people into the Web3 world.
I'm very aware and conscious of the fact that $12 in America is actually not that much, for a commitment like this. Right. And I'm aware of my socio-geographic placement on this earth as being from South Africa, but due to the conversion of everything, then it actually does really get expensive on this side. And I think that counts for at least like a third or more of the world. And obviously, when looking to something like onboarding, obstacles or any type of friction, and I know you guys definitely have thought this through, that was a very good answer, and I now understand why it is that price. So I want to just say thank you for that, for explaining that, because that does make sense, especially it actually being cheaper than it will be in the future, being like at a discount for this year. Gives a big opportunity for people to start using that opportunity.
But there might be an opportunity for us to partner with other groups to reduce the price even more, to get it to a point where we can reach that other, 1/3 or 2/3 of the online population that live in these countries. It is expensive, right? We are looking to do that. That is our mission. This is our first. Building the solution is kind of the prototype. It is part of a JV partnership group, but we are looking and exploring and talking to people about how can we get these Web2 users through these onboarding ramps into Web3 in a cost-effective way. But thank you for that, because hearing it from artists and people that really matter, that I feel like I have a soft spot in my heart for art and artists. I do believe that they make the world go around. So without that, our world wouldn't be spinning. Without people like you doing the things that you guys do. So any way that we can support that in what we're doing. And I love, VESA, your desire to, the Department of Artistic Freedom, that to me speaks volumes. And how do we get like-minded people? How do we get more people into your world that are like-minded, that would help with this cause, that want to do those things you want to do, at least from a directional standpoint, make it their own, of course, but to have those freedoms to do that. There's lots of people on the Web2 side that have no idea about this, but if we can onboard these users, and through our, it'll be organic growth, it'll be through social media, it'll be through talk, and hey, I met this great artist, VESA, you've got to check him out. This is a cool thing he's doing with the Department of Artistic Freedom. That is where it's going to start kind of, growing and getting all of these like-minded people pushing the rock up the hill together.
Yeah.
Right. It's just that we need to get some more people involved, right? We need to get more people, I feel that the Web3 community, and I've only been in it for a few years now, there's a lot of, there are quite a few people, I guess, in here, but not enough builders, not enough people doing the things that we need done to get to the next level. It's slowly changing, but probably not quick enough. And we need to all work together, in all parts, the onboarding ramps, the new users, the different groups within the spaces that you guys are in as well.
Media.
The marketplaces, the media, absolutely. The media, the education is probably the biggest piece, to be totally honest with you, Steve. And I apologize, I haven't nailed on that yet. I was thinking about that when we first introduced the podcast, how important these are, how, even if we're just reaching one new or two new or five new people, the education piece right now for Web3 and what it is. And I do believe that reducing the amount of technical jargon around what it is, people don't have to really understand it or know, they just have to use it. Nobody knows what DNS is, the domain name system. Nobody knows how that works. I mean, there's a few of us, I'm one of them. I mean, there's not many people that actually know how that works, nor do they have to spin up a website.
Right, they shouldn't have to, because they wouldn't be spinning up a website, because they're not going to know how to.
Even saying the word internet, and if you like, such a widely used word, obviously, but if you ask someone, okay, how does the internet work?
Oh, it's a series of,
I think 1% would answer that.
Well, it's like one of these things that it's a somewhat of it's an insight and a courage problem simultaneously, because many times, even if you have the insight, you might not be brave enough to say the thing. Like, for example, if people are saying, oh, it's really, really complicated to explain Bitcoin. And then I've even seen experts take an hour on a podcast and not get to the meat of the thing, even though they kind of, I think, would understand what that is. But it's not taking me more than 30 seconds to comprehensively say to someone why Bitcoin is valuable. And you go like, so what is Bitcoin? I go, Well, you know how earlier on the church and state separated, and there was a lot of consequences and things, and went one way or another. Well, essentially through this technological innovation that is Bitcoin, this is the separation of state and money. And this is why we have such an amount of stuff coming from government institutions who are saying that Bitcoin is bad, it's only for criminals and drug dealers and all this kind of thing. And while some part of that is true, we just there's these super big games being played, like potentially the central banking digital coin, which is about as polar opposite to the philosophy of Bitcoin as you possibly could have. And then both of them are digital currencies, quote unquote, but they have their very different kind of mission agendas. But if you just understand fundamentally, that there's something that has been centrally controlled for a very long time, that is the power of most states in the world, and then now there's a new direction that is happening, and it's a technological innovation, and we don't know where the chips are going to land or what's going to happen. But once you get that, just this little piece, then the rest will start to fall into place. And then, because when I came in first, when a friend of mine introduced me to this space, he just directed me to Andreas Antonopoulos and gave me a couple of his podcasts or talks. And that guy, there's zero fat on his speeches. And if you think that I'm direct, you've got another thing coming if you start to listen to Andreas. And that was my introduction to this space. He sort of said, this is Bitcoin, and I'm personally not a maxi, and this is Ethereum, because you can build this on that, and you can't build this on this. But in order for you to understand what this is, you need to understand what money is. And once you get that, then you come in and start to innovate and start to see, through the matrix code of what people are trying to say, I've got a new Bitcoin. And you get to just go, do you now? But, you don't have to maybe use endless amounts of time with endless amounts of bullshit. But still, you can start to decipher what the value of a lot of different things are. And it's essentially human freedom. It's like, have you been feeling recently like the walls are closing in a bit? And maybe that's one part of the equation of how we get to solve it. And if you're either kind of on the side of this consciousness expanding or personal freedom and those kinds of things going that way, or then you're on the other side, which is that we would rather clamp this down and kind of not have the world evolve. And both of those players are heavily in our space doing all of their different kinds of bidding. It's not complicated, but it does take some either. So from either perspective, I'm either brave or stupid. It depends on your perspective. But,
maybe both.
Maybe both.
No, you're absolutely right, though. And it really does. So there's a bunch of moving parts here. I think we're on to something. I do think we're heading in a trajectory that is going to be, it's not going to be utopia. It's never going to be perfect, but it's going to be more balanced towards what we see and what we want it to be versus where we're coming from, I believe. And you're absolutely right. There's the education piece of it, which isn't just media, but there are guys like what Phil and Dom are doing with EZA app. You guys aren't familiar. They built an app that teaches people blockchain coding languages, similarly to Duolingo teaches foreign languages to people. And they're hosting all of these build-a-thons at all the colleges, and like they're at Harvard and they're at Oxford, and then they're here, there, and everywhere, like every week. And they're getting the builders. They're teaching new kids that have they're grad students in math and data analytics and programming, and now they're being introduced to blockchain, and they're building apps, and they're doing all this stuff. But I do think we're headed in the right direction. I'm very optimistic about the future. I think the artists are going to bring people to the space, and then the app developers are going to also make it easy for them to get there. And then some of the other stuff we're doing on the community side is to try to make sure that there are the materials and the resources available for when people do onboard, that they're having good and safe experiences. And it all comes together. And we're still very early. We're just getting institutional adoption in the space. We really are very, very early. And I know we need to go faster, or it would be nice if it was closer to where we want it to be. But I am very encouraged. I want to be respectful of everybody's time. I know Don has to go soon. I want to give everyone a chance to say a last word before we wrap up. So Don, I'll let you go first.
Yeah, thanks. Again, it was a pleasure meeting you all and being part of this discussion. I think it's very intriguing. I'm so excited about where we are as a community and as a group with Web3 and where it's headed, even though we don't exactly know where we're going to end up. I think that, VESA, you mentioned something earlier that really stuck with me is 10 years from now, when we look back, and we say, hey, we've been there. We've been through that, digital revolution of sorts with this new area of the internet that has these wonderful attributes that people are using today in a more meaningful way 10 years from now than what it is actually today. So for me, thank you very much. And I'm just very excited about where we're at and looking forward to the next few years and see where we go.
Very nice to meet you, Don.
Very nice to meet you. Excited about playing with my new dot locker and see what I can do with that. And maybe
make sure you all get your dot lockers. And yeah, absolutely. Yep.
And we'll have you on. Maybe we'll have you on a morning show to talk a little bit about it sometime soon too.
Sure.
We'll have you back.
Yeah, I think that education is a big piece we need to do. So anytime.
We'll do a walkthrough or something.
Absolutely.
Awesome. I'm going to let the last word go to VESA. So Reece, you give us a last word.
Do not go gently into the night.
I love it. I should have let Reece have the last word. VESA, what do you got for us there?
Well, nothing. It's just it's nice to make new friends. Really cool to chat with both Don and Reece. Hopefully get to have our paths cross again in different kinds of ways. I followed you as well, Reece. I followed you, Don, and from myself, I think I've said more than plenty already. So maybe the last thing remains is that, Steve, that you're a real community builder. You're someone who sacrifices a lot of time for people to have a voice, and you help out people behind the scenes, and that's kind of the spirit of this space, and you're doing a great job. So that.
Well, thank you for saying that. This was such an awesome conversation. Thank you all for giving us your time today. Talked about some really interesting and different perspective kind of stuff. Super happy with all of you are producing really interesting things in this space, and I can't wait to see more. We are DeOrganized. I am PeaceLoveMusic, and we have another great show brought to you in partnership with our good friends at Bitcoin Live Decentralized Broadcasting. Thank you, Nick, for getting the show started for us today, and I hope you're feeling better. And thank you all for tuning in, everyone that watched us. All nearly 300 people tuned in live, so it was another successful show for us. And thank you guys all. Y'all have a blessed day, and we'll be with you soon. We'll be back soon tomorrow with the news. Talk to you soon. Thank you, guys.
Cool. See you.